Hello everyone, my name is Sunita and we are presently dealing with chapter number 15, that is strategic implementation and control. Let us quickly start with our next topic. So topic we have for today is structural implementation. Now structure or the organization structure is nothing but how you divide the authority and responsibility in the organization. So we already talked about that in large organization, one person cannot handle each and every task that is to be done. So they have to divide the authority and responsibility among different people in the organization. And this division is mostly on the basis of the skills and the experience, the qualification of persons in the organization. Now, because of creation of the organization structure, you interlink, you create various departments, and structure shows how one department is connected to the another department. So the organization structure creates a pattern with which various parts of the organization are connected. So each and every part of the organization structure, each and every person working in the organization structure is connected or impacted by the other part of the structure. So structure or the organization structure involves division of the authorities and responsibility, assigning them to different persons. So we create positions, we create groups, department, divisions, and we ensure that these different divisions and persons are working together in coordination to achieve organizational objective. Now, every organization have different structure, and we should also know that your organization structure impacts the way you achieve your strategy. Your structure should always complement your strategy. Structure is prepared by taking into consideration the needs of your strategy. So there is relation between your structure and strategy too. Structure is considered as a means which can help us in achieving our strategy. So managers should understand how your structure and strategy are connected. Managers, especially the top management, should understand that the way you decide your structure impacts how successfully you are able to implement your strategy. And also the structure should be flexible. Your structure should be able to quickly adapt to the changes in your environment. Your structure also influences the way you formulate your strategy. This is because the way you structure your organization impacts the way the people in the organization communicate with each other, the interpersonal relations that they have, and their strategic thoughts, the strategic values, beliefs they develop. And all these ultimately impacts your choice of strategy also. And there are two important aspects of the organizational design. One is differentiation and the other is integration. Differentiation means that you have to divide the organization into different department, organization, different units. And again, you have to ensure that all these departments are working in an integrated manner. So there is an element of creating different department and ensuring proper integration or coordination in the working of these departments. Now, there are various forms of the organization structure, and we'll quickly look at them one by one. Now, the first structure is functional structure. So this structure, I suppose, is very familiar to you. You might have read this somewhere in your previous studies too. In the functional structure, we divide the entire organization into different functions. So we create a department on the basis of specialized functions. So there are some basic functions which are performed in every organization and which are essential for the successful implementation of strategy. And these functions includes production, marketing, finance, personnel, and many other. So when the departments in the organization are created on the basis of these functions, and a specialist manager is allotted to take care of these functions, and so this is known as functional structure. Now, in many times when the organization is very large, a particular departmental manager may feel overburdened handling the large number of employees under him. And in that case, these functions are subdivided into sub-functions. So when the organization is large and we want to reduce the burden upon a single manager, we again divide these functions into sub-functions. So herein you can see that there is one production department and there would be one manager who would be responsible for the entire production department. But if company is having, three different plant at different geographical locations, it would not be possible for a single manager to handle so much of responsibility. And so we divide production function into 3 sub functions. We'll have plant 1, plant 2, and plant 3. And we'll also have sub managers. So we'll have a separate manager who will handle day-to-day responsibility of plant 1, plant 2, and plant 3. Separate manager for 3 different plants who will work in coordination and direction of the overall production manager. So that is how you try to reduce the burden upon a single manager of a functional department. Similarly, a marketing department could be divided into different sub-functions such as advertising, sales, and research. So there are few benefits of this kind of structure. So we very well know that as these different departments or these different functional department are handled by the expert manager. So we'll have an expert person who will be responsible for finance department, an expert person who will be responsible for production department. And because experts are working, this will definitely result into higher efficiency. There would be less wastage. You also need not need to control the day-to-day activities of the managers because they are specialist manager and they very well know their job. And this may also lead to economies of scale because managers will be able to produce in bulk, leading to benefit of economies of scales. The organization becomes efficient, flexible, and there is also managers are working with great motivation because the managers are handling the area according to their specialty. But there are also some limitations of the structure. So the first limitation is there is lack of responsibility. So in this structure, the managers of different functional departments are only responsible for the performance of their own division. They are not responsible for the overall performance of any project or project cost or profit. So whenever any project is going on, there is no manager who will take the responsibility of the entire project cost and profit. So this is something, there is lack of accountability. At times it is seen that managers do not work in coordination. There is a feeling of ego amongst the manager that they are supreme compared to the other managers. And this results into conflicts. And because of this, sometimes the organization miss the target. Also, functional managers do only as much as required. They do not stretch their abilities. They only discharge the responsibility according to the budget allocated to them. So this is something, because ultimately they won't be responsible for the overall performance. They are only responsible for their own performance. So they can very well say that they have done task according to what was allocated to them, and they should not be asked to do more. So that way they usually skip their responsibilities. So complex activity. So whenever the organization is into a complex activity, the complex activities usually require faster decision making, which is not possible with functional structure. Functional structure results into slow decision making process because whenever you have to take any decision, you have to take opinion of various departments, and usually the department managers have different views. This results into lots of conflicts and delays, and this will result into additional cost and losing an important opportunity. Lack of responsiveness. So as I already told you that this structure results into slow decision making, and the organization is not able to respond to the changes in the environment quickly. Line and staff conflict. So this organization structure results into so much of conflict between various departments, between department and the top level management. So there are other weakness also. Usually the functional managers try to work in a way so as to show that they are working in a good manner compared to the other departments. And that way they try to bring hurdles in the way of other department managers. And all this results into ultimate failure of the organization. When the managers of the department take a myopic view, a narrow view that their department success is important, they usually take decision which will ultimately hamper the success of organization. So this is the problem. When the conflicts are positive, when they are actually having conflict on some important issue, that kind of conflict usually result into generation of certain ideas. But when the conflict is in a manner which is beyond what is necessary, this usually results into a lack of coordination and will have a negative impact on the performance of the organization. So that these are the problems with the functional structure. Now our next structure is divisional structure. So in divisional structure, we divide the organization into different divisions. Now these divisions can be formed on the basis of product or on the basis of geography. So you can have a product division or you can have a geographic divisions. Now, whenever you frame product divisions or geographic divisions, we will allocate a separate manager for each of the divisions. So supposingly the organization is preparing 5 different products. So the organization will have 5 different product divisions. So if the organization is preparing ice creams, cars, and they are into maybe metal. So supposingly we are taking as 3. So the company is into ice creams, cars, and metal. So now the company will have 3 different divisions. One product division of ice creams, other of car, and the third of metal and iron. So we'll have separate managers who will be responsible for the working of these divisions. We'll have separate manager who have the complete idea about the ice cream business, who will handle the ice cream division. Similarly for car and metal. We also should understand that these divisions are self-contained units. Now, what is meant by self-contained unit is already discussed in our previous sessions, but I'll make you revise. So self-contained unit are those units will have their own functional units. So ice cream division will have their own functional units such as finance, manufacturing, marketing, research. Similarly, car division will also have their own separate functional units. They are considered as self-contained because they have everything which is required to carry out their day-to-day operation. So ice cream divisions have all the different units under its control, which is required to smoothly carry out its day-to-day objectives. They are not dependent upon the working of car division or metal division. So each of these divisions will be working as an independent unit and will have separate manager who will be responsible for the performance, the profit or loss of their division. And above them, there is of course top level management. But this time, top level management will have enough time to concentrate on the higher strategic decisions. Top level management will focus on, environmental analysis and making higher order policies for the organization. Whereas day-to-day performance of different divisions will be allocated to the separate managers, as I already told you. So this was division according to product. And we can also have division according to geography. So if the organization is operating into different territories, which are completely different from each other, the organization can have separate manager who will be mostly from that local territory. A local manager is hired mostly because that manager would have proper understanding about the local taste and preference, and they can guide or they can take the proper decisions regarding the territory. So when we divide the organization according to different territories or geographies, what we are having is we'll have geographic divisions. So that is what is written over here. So the organization can be divided on the basis of product or different territories. And when the organization divide according to this manner, the different divisions act as an autonomous unit. So they act independently and they'll have separate manager who will be responsible for the performance. The manager will have complete authority over his division, and the divisional head is responsible for the coordinating the work of different functional units under their control. So the different functional units of ice cream division would work according to the instruction of manager of ice cream division, and this manager is responsible for proper coordination in the working of these functional divisions. So each division is acting as a self-contained unit or a self-contained block. Same thing is written in this paragraph also, the same content. So when is the product so that's what is written. Okay, so we can divide organization according to variety of ways, but the two traditional bases are product and territory. So product and territory basis of making divisions are traditional basis. Now organization these days are making divisions on the other basis also, which is not discussed in your syllabus. So product specialization is when the organization divides the organization on the basis of different products. Each product unit has its own functional structure, and that's why each product becomes a self-contained unit. This is mostly in case of multi-product organization, which is having more than one product. And this is suitable when the products of the organization are completely different. So as I told you, cars, metal, and ice creams. They are completely different. And so we require a specialized manager who can handle these divisions. That's why this kind of structure becomes suitable. And also when the product requires special attention, they are complex and large amount of capital is invested in the working of that product, then we require a separate manager. Then we can also divide the organization on the basis of territories, where we create separate regional offices, which will act as a separate units. Each regional office will also have its own separate functional department. It will act as a self-contained unit, will have separate manager. And this type of structure, geographical division or territorial division, is mostly suitable in case of transport, insurance, and banking business, because the activities herein are spread geographically. So please remember for which business geographical structure is suitable. It is for transport, insurance, and banking. So now what are the advantages of divisional structure? So in case of divisional structure, there is strict financial control. So as I already told you, each division manager is completely responsible for the performance of his division. He will be responsible for the profit, and he would be called to answer if there is loss of the division. And so the divisional manager keep a strict financial control upon the working of his division. And there is also a sense of competition between different division, because the top management looks at the performance of different division and then will decide the allocation of resources. So different divisions try to perform better than the other. So there is a positive competition feeling, which makes every division work to their maximum efficiency and contribute to the profit. Management by exception. Here the management by exception principle is followed, because the top management will not have to focus on day-to-day working of different division. The top management will focus only on the working of that particular division which is not up to the mark. The rest day-to-day activities are the responsibility of separate divisional manager. So here the top management can definitely use management by exception and focus only or give attention only to those divisions which are not working properly. So this is also good for expansion and growth. Enhancement of morale. The morale of the employee is definitely enhanced, because the different division managers are given complete freedom to manage their division according to their own skills, according to their own creativity. And this definitely leads to the feeling of empowerment, and it develops the future managers. Care for strategic tasks. So the senior managers or the top managers will now have enough time to focus on the strategic decision making, and they do not have to waste their valuable time on day-to-day working of different divisions, for which the separate specialized manager is already appointed. High level of efficiency. So this type of a structure brings high level of efficiency, because the functional managers of different divisions are also given enough freedom by the divisional manager, and the functional manager of each division try to work in coordination, and this raises the efficiency. There are few disadvantages of this structure. First disadvantage is it is costly, because each different division have their own set of functional department, which definitely adds to cost. Because separate facilities will have to be arranged and separate staff will be appointed for each and every division. This will add to cost. Competition among divisions. See, whenever there is positive competition, that is okay, but sometimes the competition between different divisions becomes very bad, and they indulge into various kinds of politics and tactics in order to acquire more resources from the top level management. They try to put obstacles in the working of different divisions, and all this bad level of competition definitely brings the efficiency of the overall organization down and impacts the profitability too. So the organization is the ultimate sufferer when one division or the department tries to hamper the working of the other department or division, or tries to place any kind of bad politics. Coordination problem. So it is seen that even if sometimes it is required that two division must work in coordination, that kind of coordination is not seen in practicality, because different division managers have their own priority, and that's why they do not work in coordination. Change in priorities. So this is said that these days the organization are more focusing upon research and development, and therefore service departments are gaining more and more importance these days, because these days innovation is a key if you want to be ahead in the competition, and therefore the top level management are focusing more on research and development, and therefore they are putting more and more investment in R&D in order to get quick return on investment. And this is not basically a disadvantage, but it is a kind of a point which is seen at present. The top management is focusing more on R&D these days. So this was all about your division structure, wherein you divide the organization on the basis of product or territory into separate self-contained units. Now we'll talk about matrix organization structure. Now this is a structure wherein we combine the product and the project form. And this is the kind of a structure wherein you will see a two-dimensional authority. So there will be two dimensions of the authority. One is the vertical authority, which lies with the functional department, the traditional home department, and we'll also have the horizontal authority, which will rest with the project manager. I'll show you this. So in this structure, what happens? So at top level management, we'll have CEO, and the organization is divided on the basis of different functions. And these functions are permanent departments which will remain in the organization for long. So we can have maybe production department, we can have HR, sorry, we can have sales department, we can have marketing department, we can have finance, and we can also have R&D, right? So these many departments we have. These are functional departments. So I told you that matrix organization will combine two structures. Here you'll combine functional structure plus there will be project structure. Functional structure and project structure are combined. Project structure is also known as product structure. So functional structure plus project or product structure is equal to matrix structure. So this is our functional structure. And now whenever the company introduces any kind of a project, the company will introduce a project manager. So sometimes there are certain projects that the company undertake which are very specialized, and they require the guidance of the specialized expert manager, and that would be a project manager. And we very well know that projects are usually for temporary period. So the project structure is a temporary structure. So we'll introduce a project manager. This project manager will select some persons who would work with him on a project. So he will select some persons from production department, some person from sales, marketing, finance, and HR. And the selected persons, these are the selected persons, supposingly, these are the selected persons. These selected person will now have two boss. They will have the boss of the respective department from which they are selected. So these persons will have production manager as their permanent boss. These person will have sales manager as their permanent boss. And the flow of authority of the functional manager is vertical. So we can see that the flow of these manager is vertical line. We can see vertical line over here. The standing line is vertical line. So the flow of authority of the permanent functional managers is vertical. And we'll also have a project manager who would be their head, who would be the head of these employees when they are working on project. So the flow of authority, you can see that of project manager is horizontal. So this is the horizontal line which shows the authority of project manager over these employees. And that's why, because of this, the employees who are selected for the project will have two managers. They'll have the permanent functional manager, and they'll also have a temporary project manager. The metric structure is considered as a complex structure which is mostly suitable when the job is to be done in projects. This is mostly in case of research and development firm, pharma firms, wherein, or construction companies, wherein certain projects are undertaken and they are to be completed in a limited period of time. And why it is considered as a complex structure? Because herein you can very well see that the employees will have two bosses, and this is violating the principle of unity of command as narrated by Peter Drucker in his sorry, as narrated by Henry Fayol. Sorry, I was missing his name. So as narrated by Henry Fayol in his 14 Principles of Management. So he said that the boss of one employee should be one. So every employee should have only a single boss. And you can very well see a kind of a confusion that the employees will have if they are having more than one boss. At times, it is possible that the instruction given by the two boss would be completely opposite. So that will confuse the employees. Also, the employees will be burdened. They would be accountable to two bosses, and therefore they may feel confused as to whom they should ultimately report. This also adds to cost because the project manager would is an expert, and therefore he'll definitely ask for a huge paycheck. So that adds to cost. And there are also coordination problem because at times it is seen that project managers and functional managers, because of their ego problems and because of power struggles, do not work in proper coordination. So that are few problems that is mostly seen in the matrix structure. Now let us read from your book. So matrix structure. So this diagram maybe is not proper. I showed you the proper matrix structure. So matrix is an organization structure wherein you have dual channels of authority and accountability. The employees will have two boss and they'll be accountable to two persons. And these are basically the functional managers, and we also have our project managers. And there are some advantages of matrix structure. Direct relation, the employees are in direct relation with both the bosses, and who tells these employees time to time as to how they are performing. And that kind of direct relationship can be seen in the matrix structure. The employees will have two bosses who will regularly tell them as to how they are performing and where they can improve. Quality decisions. So it is characteristic of matrix structure that decisions are taken after thorough discussion. There is always participative decision making because in projects usually the members of the project act as a team members, and everyone contributes their opinions, and therefore the quality of decision improve. Also, we have expert functional managers and expert project managers. So it is said now ki two heads are better than one, and therefore when two experts, functional managers and project managers are working together, definitely the quality of decisions would be more. Participative management. So I already told you in this structure, matrix structure, decisions are taken on the basis of proper discussions, and everyone is invited to give opinions, and therefore the morale and motivation of the employees increases. This also leads to quality decision making. Matrix structure has some disadvantages. One is conflicts and confusion. So this is very clear because this structure breaches the principle of unity of command as given by Henry Fayol in his 14 Principles of Management. And because of that, employees usually feel confused when there is conflict between the instruction given by two managers. Also, there is a conflict of loyalty. The employees do not know which work they should give priority, line managers or the project managers work. And there is also a conflict between these two managers over allocation of resources. Delayed decision because employees are mostly confused, and that's why and also there is participative decision making. So every time whenever decision is taken, you will call for opinions. This will definitely take time. High degree of integration is not possible. Coordination is the biggest issue of this type of structure, because I already told you that the two bosses, the functional and the project managers, they have their own ego clashes. They struggle for power, they struggle for superiority, and therefore the high degree of coordination cannot be achieved because of this dual channels of authority. So this is all about your matrix structure. We have the last structure, which is free form structure. It is free form because this is actually a formless structure. There is no structure at all, formless structure. And in this kind of a structure, you will not see the traditional kind of the organization where there is a proper division of authority, responsibility, and there is creation of different departments or units, or there is this kind of hierarchy. wherein there are 3 levels, top, middle, bottom. So this kind of structure you won't see in free form. There is no structure at all. And that's why it is called as a formless or free form structure. So how work is done when there are no division, no department. So basically this form of organization is suitable wherein the organization is facing a very dynamic environment, when the environment is changing constantly. So in that case, you cannot opt for doing everything by your own. In the very dynamic environment, what organization basically do, they outsource their activities. Organization basically give the task. Supposingly, you may talk about any organization, at present, if you talk about Samsung, all the tasks that goes on in manufacturing a Samsung phone are not performed at a single unit. Every part of a Samsung phone is prepared by a different organization working in different geographical area, and that's what preform organization means. The task of an organization is divided among different experts that may be working in different areas of the world. And the only task of the organization or the main company is to coordinate between the work of different partners. So we can talk about Nike, we can talk about any other company, Samsung. They have distributed all the tasks, the production, marketing, assembling, to different companies around the world, and they are just coordinating among these partners. And there is no hierarchy. You cannot say that any of these partner, one is superior or the other is inferior. All are having equal rank, and the company basically entered into long-term contract with these different partners according to their expertise and allocated them tasks. And that's why this structure is considered to be very flexible. If you're not satisfied with the working of a particular partner, you can just end the contract and enter into contract with any other company. It is very easy to adapt according to the changes in the environment, because you do not have to make by yourself. You just have to select the organization that can do best in the changed environment. So this type of structure is considered to be very adaptive. It is a kind of a temporary system, because I already told you, company is working on contract basis with different partners around the world, and this kind of contract is usually temporary, and the work is given to the strangers around the world according to their professional skills. This structure is suitable for the companies working in a dynamic environment where the environment is changing very fast. So we have seen there are different kind of structure, and you cannot say that a particular structure is best. The structure is should be in accordance with your strategy, and you cannot say that a particular structure is best or not. So the structure should be suitable to your organization, suitable to your strategy, and that becomes best. Now, there are few guidelines that when the organization environment is stable and it does not demand much of interdepartmental coordination and innovation, you can go for functional structure. And when the environment is basically dynamic and you require faster response, better coordination, communication, innovation, then you should opt for divisional structure. And when the organization is planning for expansion through mergers and acquisition, you should see that whenever you are merging or acquiring any entity, you will need to change your structure, because you are working with a new company, and that's why maybe your present structure may not be suitable after merger, and so you may need to change. So whenever you change your strategy, certain kind of structural changes are unavoidable. Your structure should always complement your strategy, and therefore you have to fine tune your existing structure according to your new strategy every time you come up with a new strategy. So this was all about your structural implementation. Now let us talk about procedural implementation. Now, what is procedure? Procedure is nothing but a series of related tasks that you have to perform in a particular sequence. So whenever you have certain steps to perform in a sequence in order to complete a task, that group of steps is nothing but procedure. Procedure is considered as established way of performing any particular task. Now, whenever you implement any strategy, there is also a procedural implementation that you have to take into consideration. And procedural implementation deals with completion of all the statutory, all the legal formalities and other formalities that have been prescribed by government at the central and at the state level. So the major procedural issues that we have to deal is licensing requirement. Now that we know that after LPG, most of licensing requirement have been abandoned, but still for certain industries which are perceived to be injurious to the public health, license is to be taken from central government, and this is prescribed under Industries Development and Regulation Act 1951. So if your strategy requires you to enter into that industry which require licensing, you have to follow this procedure of first getting license. FEMA requirement. FEMA is nothing but Foreign Exchange Management Act, and whenever you deal in foreign currency, you need to take permission of Reserve Bank of India, and in certain cases, and this has been written under FEMA Act. So there are certain companies, if they have foreign shareholding in excess of 50%, and if foreign companies are established, foreign companies have established their branch office in India and they are dealing in India, then they have to obtain permission of RBI if they want to get fresh investments, they want to issue shares and debentures, or they want to acquire any business unit. So there are some restrictions on Indian companies who are doing foreign transactions, and there are also restrictions on foreign companies which have established their business in India, and that they also have to take certain permissions. Foreign collaboration procedure. So we have seen that companies usually enter into joint ventures with foreign partners in order to get the benefits of technology, and in that case foreign companies participate in the equity of the venture. So whenever you enter into this kind of joint venture wherein you want to acquire the technology, you have to get the previous permission of central government. So these kind of technology agreement and joint ventures cannot be done without permission of central government. Now, capital issue requirement. So SEBI is the authority who basically deals with capital market requirements. So SEBI, under SEBI Act 1992, have prescribed some controls. Whenever the company issues any prospectus for acquiring the funds from the primary market, the SEBI sees to it that the prospectus has all adhered with all the disclosure norms, because prospectus is a document believing which the innocent public invest money, and therefore this document should be proper, authentic, and giving full information. So SEBI scrutinizes this document and then only give permission to the company if everything goes well. And even if you want to acquire funds from international market, you can raise GDR, Global Depository Receipts, American Depository Receipts, or you can obtain long-term loans. But if you are capturing international market, foreign markets for funds, you need to take permission of central government and RBI. Import and export requirement. So import and export, import and export, whenever you want to do, then there are two kinds of list of the goods. There are certain goods which fall under open general license category, and there are certain goods which fall under restrictive category. So if you are importing or exporting the goods which fall under open general license category, you do not have to fulfill much requirements. All you need to do is to inform RBI as to what goods or what goods you are importing or exporting. That's it. But if you are dealing in goods which are under restrictive list category, first you need to obtain import or export license, which is to be procured from Ministry of Commerce. And this also requires you to fulfill certain procedures. So this was all about your procedural requirement, fulfilling various statutory norms that have been given by our government. Now we'll look at behavioral implementation. See, behavioral implementation deals with the subjective factors which cannot be seen, but they still influence the choice of your strategy and the way you implement your strategy. It deals with all those factors which have the influence on the behavior of people in the organization, their attitude towards each other, their attitude towards the stakeholders. See, organization is nothing but deliberate creation of human beings. Organization is nothing but bunch of humans who are working towards achievement of certain objectives. And the way they behave, as the way they act, definitely impacts the way you implement your strategy. And therefore, we are looking at what are the factors that have the behavioral effect on the strategy. Now, this includes discussion about leadership. As we know that leaders are the one who are responsible for guiding their team, who are responsible for motivating their team, so that the team could put the efforts in the right direction and help to realize the organizational goal. Leaders are considered as a change agent. They do not fear change, but they prepare their organization, their team members to cope up with the change which is necessary for proper implementation of decided plans and policies. Leaders have this ability to persuade others so as to put their efforts in the right direction, willingly and enthusiastically. Leaders have the ability to transform the mindset of the people. They have the ability to transform the thinking of the people, give them vision so that the organization achieves the unique position in the market. Leader has the ability to transform the entire organization, may it be size, the practices that have been followed since ages, the culture, the values. He can change everything according to the requirement of the environment, according to the requirement of the strategy. So we can say that there are some elements of the strategic leadership which we should take into consideration. The first thing is that a strategic leader is one who keeps the vision and mission in mind and sees to it that the organization is working effectively and is delivering results. He sees to it, he emphasizes on the transformational aspect. He transforms the mindset of the people and create more leader. He creates future leader. A strong leader is one who does not create followers, but creates more leaders. He inspires and motivates people so that they work together in coordination towards a common objective. A leader has a external focus. A strategic leader has an external focus. Please remember this line. A strategic leader has the external focus. That means that a strategic leader does not only take into consideration the internal strength and weakness, but he also analyzes the external forces, the external environment, the threats and opportunities of the environment, and then takes his decision. And that way we can say that he is able to relate the organization with the environment. A leader is considered as a person who takes actions in order to put the strategy into operation. A leader is considered as an architect of the strategy. Please remember, a strategic leader is considered as the architect of the strategy. And a leader should focus on the following aspects. A leader should focus on developing new qualities. He should upgrade his skills from time to time in order to perform effectively. A leader should be visionary. He should not think of short term, he should think of long term. He should be willing to accept the change. He should make his organization highly adaptable to change. Usually people resist change, but an effective leader can convince them that the change is necessary for the survival of the organization. A leader must exemplify the values and culture and goals of the organization. He should not only say it, but he should also put into practice the values, culture, and he should show his commitment towards the goals of the organization. Because mostly the followers do not listen words, they listen to actions. And that's why it is said that leader should exemplify all those what he is preaching. He should pay attention to the strategic thinking and intellectual activities. He should try to make his employees more creative. He should focus on their intellectual development. He should adopt a collective view. A leader should always take the opinions from his team members. He should give importance to the suggestion given by his followers. Leadership is something which is required at all the levels of the organization. He should empower others. He should not spoon feed his followers, but he should give them authority to decide their own destiny. That way, he should focus on statesmanship. He should build the skills of the subordinate. He should give them confidence that they can do and make them change agents, make them be prepared to accept the change instead of resisting those changes. He should delegate the authority to the people below him. He should emphasize on creation of something new. That means he should emphasize on innovation. If he does all this, organization will surely move in the right direction, build more leaders for the future, and achieve the decided goals. And it is said that only understanding the role of the leader is not enough. A leader should also try to match his style according to the strategy. So different leadership styles are there, and the leader should adopt the style which goes well with the decided strategy. Leader should also time to time change his leadership pattern according to the strategy. So leadership style is nothing but the pattern of behavior, the way the leader behaves to influence the behavior of the subordinate. Now, leader can sometimes be autocratic, and he can focus, he can use his power, he can use the reward and punishment to influence the behavior of the employees. At times, he can be very, friendly, he can guide his employees. So that way, depending upon the situation, he should change his way of dealing with his employees. So that is what is all about your leadership. Next behavioral element is culture. Now, culture is also an important element that can influence the behavior of people working in the organization. Culture impact the way people interact with each other. It also impact the way people or the employees in the organization deals with external stakeholder. Now, culture is nothing but the sum total of the assumptions, the beliefs, the values, the norms, which is shared by all the members of the organization. All those beliefs, traditions, values differs from organization to organization. And culture impacts how employees behave in the organization. Now, there are two important elements of culture. One is abstract element, which cannot be seen, and the other is material element, which can be seen. Now, abstract element of culture is internally oriented. It is internal to the employees, which cannot be seen by outsider, but it's reflected in how they behave. So this includes the values, their attitudes, their beliefs, and their feelings. Material elements are externally focused. This is not extremely focused. This is externally focused. Externally focused, and it can be easily seen. And this is reflected in the kind of the dress code the employees have, the colors of their dress code, the building, the infrastructure, the products of the company, their advertisement. All this reflects their values and beliefs. So these are two types of or culture elements. Now, the last point of behavioral implementation is values and ethics, and there is difference between values and ethics. Now, values is nothing but the philosophy of an individual, and this values are built by the individual by himself according to his experiences, his own judgment about what is good or what is bad. Now, ethics or business ethics is not developed by an individual himself, but it is adopted from the values of the institution where the person is working, from the goals or values of the organization, from the values and behavior of colleagues, and from the professional code of conduct. So ethics are taken from the external world, business ethics are taken from external world, whereas values are deeply held by the individual and is made by himself only, right? So values are nothing but all those convictions, all those moral behavior, all those moral values that you believe are must for your conduct. Now, strategy implementation is also impacted by these values of the people in the organization. And according to strategic management, people in the organization is divided into these categories: board of directors, chief executives, managers, and corporate planning staff. So according to strategic management, the people in the organization are divided into four categories. Please remember: board of directors, chief executives, managers, and corporate planning staff. Now, chief executives and managers are responsible for strategy implementation, and so their values and their personality impact the way they implement. Individual values may differ from the organizational values and they may not match each other. But in actual practice, it is seen that mostly the organization values and personal values are in coordination with each other. Now, the last category of implementation is functional implementation. Now, functional implementation, here we talk about development of functional policies. These policies are prepared by the top level management. Functional policies are nothing but the guidelines which will help the executives at the middle and the bottom level to see that the resources are properly implemented, the resources are properly allocated to the different functions, and they are properly utilized. Policies will also guide middle level management to frame the operational plans and tactics which will help in proper strategy implementation. So policies are guidelines prepared by top level management within which plans and decisions will be taken by middle and bottom level management. These policies will also guide them to make maximum and optimum utilization of limited resources. And to formulate the functional plans, the middle and the bottom level management have only to decide in which area the goals are to be prepared. And after preparation of goals, they have to make action plans for implementing these functional goals. Now, any single goal may include lots of actions in different functional areas. So a single goal will require activation of different functional areas, and so different action plans for different areas are to be prepared. So you may have to prepare action plans for marketing, finance, R&D, personnel, production department in order to implement a particular goal. So this is all about your functional implementation. I'll make you revise this point once again. This point talks about preparation of functional policies by top level management. Functional policies are guidelines which will help the executives working at middle and bottom level management to determine their plans and the way they'll prepare their plans and tactics for strategy implementation. This will also guide them to properly use the limited resources. And lastly, for functional plans, to formulate the functional plans, first of all, you need to decide functional goals, and then you have to prepare action plans for different functional areas. So this is all about this session. Thank you.